Patrick Mahomes is the QB1 in the NFL, and everybody knows it, including a certain quarterback out in Cincinnati. Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day for free, starting on YouTube and ending up on Apple, Spotify, every single platform you can think of. You can get Locked On Chiefs. We are here every day. You everydayers already know that. For those of you that don't, 5 days a week, every single time for free. You can find us everywhere. We appreciate you making us your first listen. There are plenty of other shows on the network that you might want to check out, whether it's fans of other teams or whether you have opponents that you want to do some research on. Every team, every day, all the time, you can find it here on Locked On. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, where if you go, you can go get the MVP logo hat that I have on today if you happen to be watching the YouTube channel, as well as NFL 33. So thanks for being here.
And I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. When we start talking about QB1 and all of the things that are going in minicamp, there is a ton to cover. And really quick, before we get into that, if you want to text us, please text us at 816-357-8781. It's a new service we are providing, and there will be a lot more coming in the coming weeks and months. Okay, so when we look at QB1, when we look at where he sits in the NFL and how everybody looks at him, one of the things that's always fascinating about him is you get a picture of what's going on when he's prepping from Bobby Stroop from time to time. You get those types of videos, on his social media as well. But he is part of a Netflix series called Quarterbacks that is coming out in July that just had a preview drop for the first time today. And this is going to be something that's going to be a lot of fun to watch because you're sitting there watching the ins and outs of things that we don't normally get to see. And it has even more audio from some of the games that didn't make the cut originally.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing is if you license NFL Films, they have all the audio from the whole game long. There's a lot of little bits and pieces you could pull together. And I appreciate a series like this putting together what you don't see about MVP. He's so unique. It's the little aspects, I think, play to play, day to day, what he's getting out of his teammates that I think is the most intriguing part for me that I'm looking forward to. We saw a little bit, in what Skyy Moore's team was able to put out this spring. I'm really looking forward to seeing more. And I think the rest of the quarterbacks around the league have to take some notes from what QB1 does in order to get things to the point that he has this offense humming.
Yeah. And, this series is going to be looking at it from a completely different perspective. It's going to focus on the football games, the preparation, all of that. But it's also going to focus on what it's like to be a QB. You're going to see an inside look of, a little bit more of their family information. How does that aspect of everything play in? So to me, it's just a fascinating thing to see because you're going to get an inside look at three different QBs, Marcus Mariota, Kirk Cousins, and Patrick Mahomes, and kind of their stories and how things are going to build. And that's going to be on Netflix starting in July. Really looking forward to it. A lot to talk about when that comes up in July, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to get an inside look at the QBs in the NFL and what their life is like.
Well, and I think the comparison, the contrast will be probably the most enlightening.
Absolutely.
It certainly stands out to me. I know it stands out to some other people. It stands out to one guy who happens to play in Cincinnati because for the first time that we've heard it in recent years, they ask a silly question. Every beat has silly reporters that ask things just to get a rise out of somebody, just to see what somebody will say. I think the Cincinnati Bengals beat reporters were pretty surprised when you ask Joe Burrow, who's the best quarterback, who are you living up to, and he doesn't name himself. He names Pat Mahomes. And I think the way about it, if you got to see the clip, that really hit me too. It's like, because it was just so matter of fact. His teammates can defend Joe all they want. Joe's a great quarterback. But when he's asked directly and it's like instant reaction that it is Patrick Mahomes that is out front, is QB1 in this league, I think that's an acknowledgement that goes farther than any of the analysts or any of the other things, even the Lombardi trophies can point to. It's the respect of your peers that should be in the conversation with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think that when you look at what Joe Burrow was saying and how he was asked and where he was asked, and you know, QBs and players in this league are always trying to be the best that they possibly can and be the best in the league. I mean, that's their whole goal, is to be the best player at their position, in the league. And for him to come out and say he's chasing Pat Mahomes, to us, that kind of seems like maybe it should be a foregone conclusion that he's chasing Pat Mahomes, just because everything that Mahomes has done to this point. He's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. He's been to 3 Super Bowls in the past 4 years. League MVP twice. All of that just points to he is the best QB in the NFL right now. And somebody else in a peer that is talked about as being up there with him coming out and saying Mahomes is that guy, I think that shows a lot. I'm really curious. When you start seeing guys like Joe Burrow come out and say that it's Mahomes, you have to wonder how that's going to play out when you get to NFL Films later this year and they do the top 100 for this year. Because Mahomes has always taken stock in where players thought he was at the NFL.
I think that little emoji icon for the note-taking, like that should just become Pat Mahomes now, because we use it every year because he doesn't let anything slide. And I agree with you. What was he, number 4 last year? Is that where it was?
I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but he was counting on his fingers 4 at some point. So, yeah, I mean, he notes where people think he is.
Yeah, and when you're out front, that's what you have to find any motivation you can to stay out front, to keep pushing yourself to be the lead dog. And I think that's what's most important. So I'll just say, for all you Bengals fans who might be tuning in, because I know you guys like to troll us, when Pat wins another MVP, you can thank Joe Burrow for pushing him.
And I think he is going to be in the running for MVP this year. I think that when you watch this offense and you watch what he has available to him and the way he played last year, I mean, he took a offense that people were thinking wasn't going to be as good because of no Tyreek Hill, and he made it better in a lot of ways. And I think that's going to continue this year. I mean, you got younger guys and you got other players that could contribute last year that are different than, or contribute this year that were different than last year. But I still think you're in a situation where you got to feel pretty good about the weapons he has, not just because they're good enough, I think, but also because of who's going to be throwing the ball. I think that's really a big key. We're going to be talking about Skyy Moore, one of his weapons, here in just a moment when we get back from the break.
First, I got to tell you, the NBA playoffs are over, and if you didn't enjoy the Nuggets winning, I mean, you got to enjoy it somehow, right? I hope you got in on the action. If you didn't, there are other opportunities, because right now you have prop bets, you have totals, you have the guys who's going to win Rookie of the Year. You have all kinds of things you can get in the action on over at FanDuel right now, heading up to the NFL season, which is really all that we care about right now, right? Stanley Cup's over, NBA's over, we're all set for NFL. Get in the action with their no-sweat first bet right now that they have set up for new users. When you sign up, you are eligible for up to $2,500 in bonus bets coming back to your account if you make a bet and the first one loses. All you got to do is go sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon and get in the action right there at America's #1 sports book. It's easy and it's simple. Go to FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you want to go. The exact address. You can see it down here below on YouTube. Sign up. Get that no-sweat first bet. If you lose your first bet, you are eligible for up to $2,500 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. At FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, the MLB, and most importantly, and very soon right in front of you, the NFL. So Pat Mahomes can't do it all alone. There's just no way to get it done. He's got to throw the ball to someone. It's been a topic since the Super Bowl is who's he going to have, who's going to step up. We know that the national media just completely doubts Kadarius Toney being able to be a number 1. So if they're right, if he can't stay healthy, if he has to miss 6 games this season, who's the next guy to step up? There's a number of options. A couple of them are making some sparks right now in mandatory minicamp. And I think the biggest one, I've talked about him a lot over on RGR. I don't know that we've gone as in-depth here on Locked On, but he's maybe the smaller stature, but the biggest guy that I think has a chance to take up the slack is Skyy Moore. And he's had a unique perspective on this offseason. What stands out to you the most about the fact that he's been down in Dallas with Pat Mahomes?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that really stand out to me. First off, before we talk about the Dallas, MVS is out there talking about how he's seen such a difference in Skyy Moore, how he's prepping, how he's getting ready, how he's doing things. And when your veteran comes out and says that about you, it's not your QB, it's not your coach. That, when it's a veteran in the same position group, that says a lot about your preparation and what you're getting used to. Now, to your specific question about in Dallas, Skyy Moore talked about it today and said essentially it was he got a closer look with Mahomes, and he got closer with Mahomes because he was in Dallas, because you get the one-on-one time. He's able to talk to Mahomes after a play, see how he wants the route run, see how he wants him to be able to do things. And I think that's very important, because what you don't realize when you start talking about practice, you start talking about minicamp, training camp, and all of that, those players don't have a ton of time to actually get together and work on things. It's something that they have to do either before practice, after practice, inside, wherever, on their own time, but they can't do it at practice. And having the ability to be in the same place with Mahomes and get that one-on-one time to kind of figure out what Mahomes is expecting, I think that's huge for Skyy Moore.
Yeah, I mean, that's about how you get on the same page with him, especially when he has to add them, when he has to go outside of structure. It's one thing to understand the route that you're running and how leverage on the defensive back. It's also another thing to know, if that breaks down, where do I have to get to that Pat's going to expect me to go? Where does he like it? I think you get instruction. And I think that's one thing I'm really looking forward to in this series, is seeing the instruction part of it. Because, I mean, let's be real. It's been a long road. Patrick Mahomes is not just the phenom that he was when he first got on the field. He's now the established veteran. And that, I think, brings more gravitas to it. You hear about the way ex-teammates talk about players like Peyton Manning and obviously Tom Brady and things like that, about how what was in their head had to be made to come alive on the field. And I think that's the way it is now too, that Patrick Mahomes is going to direct, not just, here, there, setting up the protections, calling the mic and that thing, but understanding how to communicate to his receivers how the routes need to be run.
Yep. And really quick, I've been sitting here looking because I wanted to make sure I got this quote right. Skyy Moore said today, essentially a message for Patrick Mahomes: if you look this way, you will not be mad. You won't be mad. And that means, take that what you will, but that also means that he acknowledges that last year was a whirlwind for him, and he wasn't where he was supposed to be. He wasn't where he wanted to be. And I think that was kind of expected, considering he's coming from such a small school, and you have a lot of adjustments going from college to pro. Regardless, even if you're in a Power 5 school, you'd have some adjustments. He's coming from an even smaller school than that. So the point is that he has gotten to a point where he now knows what Patrick expects. He now knows this is how he wants this done. This is how he expects him to run this. This is how he expects him to, prep for catching the ball, where to be and how, and all of that. Skyy Moore sounds like he knows what Mahomes is going to be looking for, and that should be exciting for any Chiefs fan.
Yeah, you want to see him step up. We need more than one guy to do that as well. And it does sound like, if you guys missed yesterday, Matt Derrick was on with us. Go back and listen to that. You everydayers probably heard it already, but for those of you that are not, consider we are here 5 days a week. So the content yesterday that Matt was putting down was that MVS is having a really nice camp, that he's in the right spot. He's making plays. So you're getting MVS taking a step forward, hopefully, over what we saw last season. Rumor is Richie James is looking really good too. I have him slated right now as the number 4 receiver on this roster. Matt has him a little bit lower and in competition with Justin Watson. But I like that combination. And it seems like people ask, when's Andy going to go to this giant receiver thing, right? And the 6-footers are what Andy's looking for, because there's a slew of them and they're all making noise.
To be clear, I think you meant Justin Ross, but
no,
I just have to chuckle.
I meant Justin Watson.
Did you mean? Because you're talking about the catch. Okay, sorry. I thought you were talking about being with a competition for receiver position with Justin Ross. But fair enough. Yeah, that was a great catch by James, and really just going about it. I think that's a big thing. MVS is talking about Richie James. He's not much of a talker, but he shows up and he gets his work done, and he's prepared. And that's exactly what you want to see from a guy that you bring in. And it doesn't matter. I mean, we talk about MVS as the vet on this roster. Richie James is a vet too. You bring in those guys to see if they can help your team, but you also bring them in because, you think that they're going to show the young guys how to prepare right, how to be a professional wide receiver. That's important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's a guy that maybe we sleep on a little bit. What was he? He was in 2018. He was drafted, right? So same year as Pat.
Sounds right.
7th rounder. So a lot to be desired there. 5101 is his height. So another 5'10" to 6 foot wide receiver that fits in this offense and can do what he can do. I like the fact that there's more and more options. And having guys that are similar size can do similar things. I think that helps Patrick as well. As again, we go back to what does the direction from the quarterback look like? I think we're going to find that out in a lot more detail. We also have to find out who's going to be running the ball, who's going to be helping out, who's going to be that guy that takes up the slack possibly in the pass game. We've seen him do it before. The running back spot is very, very competitive in that they need to come together and find somebody to lead. Jerick McKinnon's back. Said he was always going to be. What does that mean for this group? Right after this. Jerick McKinnon, obviously, what a season last year. All the touchdown catches.
Yep.
I don't know that he can repeat that, but they need somebody to be the outlet, right? For what I understand, Generic Prince is catching the ball really well. Obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in here as well as Pacheco, but it was McKinnon that I think had the quote of the day from minicamp in that he always intended to be back. Whatever happened, he was planning on being back here. And I think that is because of not only the win from last season and that he had a great season, but it's the culture and understanding that he still has a role to play, even though there are some young guys that are around and trying to make some kind of impact.
Well, and actually, I think that it goes a little bit beyond that. I think it also is he loves the role that the team has given him. And what I mean by that is he knows he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to be the lead back. He doesn't have to be the guy that's going to tote it 20, 30 times a game. And whether or not that actually happens in the Chiefs offense, who knows if we'll ever see that again. But the point is he doesn't have to be that number one guy. He knows he's a complementary piece, and he's happy with that. He saw what he was able to do, last year with all the catches. And I would argue that some of his catches were fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But some of his blocking was even more important than some of the catches were. He was fantastic being a personal protector, and that was huge for Mahomes. And then you watch what he does in the Super Bowl, and he shows you he's a team player. I mean, yeah, they talk about it, when you go back and rewatch the Super Bowl and that call where he's running the ball, they say church mode. But that still takes a selfless act to say, I'm not scoring in the Super Bowl. I'm going to take a knee at the 1 yard line for my team. That says something about the player.
It does. And that makes the front office and the coaching staff want him back, and it makes him want to come back because he's getting used in a way that helps him get things done. And I think especially Jerick McKinnon's stage of his career, it is about wins. It is about rings. It is about being that guy that, you remember that secondary back that contributed to all those Super Bowls? Like, that's the kind of thing that you're working for. So I was glad to hear the confirmation. We had theorized that he was always planning to be back, but to hear him say it, I think really sinks in just how important it is for a lot of players to play on this roster.
And I think the other thing that I meant to say was that I think he also realizes that it's better for his body to be in a situation where the coaching staff knows him, the coaching staff knows what he can do, and they're willing to put him in situations where he's not going to have to be killing himself at times. So, I think he takes pride in his personal protection status when he's Mahomes' guy. I think that's a part of his pride. I think he really enjoys that. And I don't think that's going to be something that he's going to not look forward to. But you look at what Andy Reid does with him and gets him out there in good situations for Jerick to be successful. And I think that's also got to play into it. These guys know what I can do. I've been here for a couple of years. I love what Coach Reid has done for me in the past several years. I love that he put me in a position to be very successful last year, and I was able to make some plays and get some touchdowns. But then you're right. He has a chance to win another Super Bowl being back in Kansas City.
And that's what it all comes down to. Hopefully he gets a little bit of help. I do think that they need a committee. The role of what Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be, I think, is still up in the air. I think coming up in the next few days, probably early next week, we're going to talk about potential trades that could happen. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of them. Had some interesting things to say about where he was for the parade and a couple of other things that I think make you understand that he's probably not very happy with his role as part of a committee. but that committee has to come together and be functional. I'm really intrigued. I haven't had a chance to see Deneric Prince yet, but from everything that I hear, it's the pass catching that's standing out right now as somebody that can play in the pass game that I didn't necessarily see on film. So I'm looking forward to see that. And we got to know how Pacheco is recovering. So far, it looks like everything's A-okay, but there's no pads, there's no contact. So after we get through this next month, and it is, by the way, just a little over a month until training camp, folks. Official dates should be coming out soon. It is not going to be a late, 30th of July kind of thing this year. So wait for the official announcement, but we'll have you prepped and ready.
Yeah, and I just have to say the one thing that I find funniest from Clyde's talk, this was the day before, was him saying that he's basically going to be possibly the Z wide receiver because of injuries in the Super Bowl. And I guess the thing that I find funny, and you talk about Deneric Prince, and that's kind of how I'm tying this in, is his ability to catch the ball is what made them think that he could go do that role, but they don't use him in that role, and they're looking at other guys. It's kind of ironic to me, I guess. And honestly, when you start talking about Deneric Prince, and if they think he's going to be able to take steps forward in the passing game, that gives you a guy, if he can figure out to do what McKinnon does when it comes to being that protector for Mahomes, maybe he's the guy that takes over for McKinnon in maybe not this year, obviously, but maybe next year or the year after, because McKinnon is getting up there in age.
Yeah. And it always catches up with you. You can see the diminishing returns. I think tomorrow we're going to have to talk about what's going on at quarterback in minicamp and what it's going to look like. Not going to see a whole lot more after this camp until they arrive in St. Joe. So be with us tomorrow when we go over that. Looking at trades next week. Everything that falls out from this camp as we hear about it, we will let you guys know. So thanks for spending your time with us today. We definitely do appreciate it. We hope that you have a good Thursday as well. Be back with us tomorrow. We appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.